little bit of my story background. I started my creative journey as a photographer whenever I was in high school. Went to school for 1 year on a baseball scholarship, but decided to pursue music performance as well as a vocal performer. Did not see that my long-term calling, and so I left music full-time to produce videos full-time. I was in the sports media world. And then God ended up calling me to stay at home in 2020, as he called all of you to stay at home in 2020. And that was probably the worst thing that happened that I wanted to happen, but God wanted it to happen because he transitioned me from full-time traveling on the road with sports to full-time ministry. From there, I also started leading worship at my church, and I was our creative director for about 2 years at a smaller church, but nonetheless very impactful in our community. Loved it, and then God opened the door to move to Des Moines in 2022. So now a little bit more about me. I want to talk about a little bit of what I do. As film director, I have the privilege of leading our broadcast team, and then I support direct our live production team, so our broadcast team, from people making our online experience and our campuses. We have 3 campuses, enjoyable and efficient as well, while also support directing our in-person and in-the-room production team and experience, so everything from front of house sound to our side screens, everything like that. We do have side screens as well, so we're running IMAG just for the sake of the size of our room, and then our lights, front of house sound, you can't see it, but it's over there to the left. I also lead worship. I'm our band director voluntarily, so everything from helping to produce the weekend from on stage to off stage as well. What I want to talk about is more than just the media side of things, and I know that maybe everyone came in here thinking that, okay, we might get some secret sauce on cameras or Pro Presenter, what I'm using right now. And we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. I want to open it up to discussion, but the reason I didn't want to start or talk about that too much is because everyone here is from a different background, a different size of church. I have had the privilege of working for a church of 50 people to being contracted for a church of 50,000 people. Very big difference. The common denominator is people-led teams, and that's going to be what we're going to be talking about, how to make the most of your ministry, which I subtitled Letting Go of Your Ministry. And that may be like, okay, I'm on staff, I don't want to relinquish all of my duties, nor should you, but how to actually make the most of your ministry is by letting go of it. This is something that I've learned in the last 6 years. Again, I'm only 24. I don't have it all figured out. I'm merely the messenger for people that have spoken in my life and that I have learned from other people's experience, expertise, and everything, their knowledge. I don't want to be long-winded. I want to open up for some questions at the end. And then we can all kind of discuss, maybe if you guys have questions that I don't know the answer to, but someone else in here, I think we're all here to learn from each other, not just from me, hopefully. There are 3 points that I want to talk about how to let go of your ministry. And again, like this is my field of experience and expertise is cameras, audio, technology, songwriting, song producing. That's my experience and my expertise. But really what happens at the core of it is I get to deal with people every day. And that is one of the most challenging jobs because it's never the same. It's never the same. I go to conferences annually. I listen to podcasts weekly. I talk to people. I talked to Isaac this morning, someone that we kind of talked about yesterday. He's a keys player and music director at a church in Des Moines. And all of the things that I've learned, I'm going to try and communicate and kind of crunch down into this short session because they're is so much to talk about, and I think we all know that because there's so much that happens in the church that we just can't control, and we don't know how to articulate everything. So, that being said, let's get into the deep stuff. First of all, your ministry does not look like mine, nor should it. The comparison game comes so easy. Specifically for me, I'll be looking at someone else's work, I'll be scrolling on Instagram, and then I'll see someone else's church do something, and I'll be like, oh, I want to do that. And then come to find out they paid $100,000 for this budget line item, and that's not what is in our annual budget for our tech. So let's be real. Your production, your creativity is unique, and that is your superpower. I've been on staff or a leadership role at 5 different churches. First one being volunteer staff, volunteer role at Independent Fundamental Baptist Church growing up. A Southern Baptist, they had about 300 people weekly. A Southern Baptist church, they had about 1,000 people weekly. A Free Will Baptist church, they had about 60 people weekly. Non-denominational church, 800 people weekly. Assemblies of God Church, 2,000 to 3,000 weekly. And Lutheran, Free Will Lutheran Church, that has about 20,000 weekly. So different, widespread, very, very different. But the thing that they all have is people. So this is something I would really like for you to write down is discipleship does not mean duplication. So many times we want to duplicate something in our ministry, but we don't actually want the process that comes along with it. We want to take, okay, they have this, they have the lights, they have the screens, they have the gear, and we want to make that ours, but you have no way of, even if you had it, to make it work. Everything is people ran, and if you don't have the people that can actually invest in your ministry, then you're only going to be left with a lot of fancy gear collecting dust or not being used properly. So many things that we say at Eternity is people over process. I have been pulled out of tech meetings to deal with someone, pray over someone, see them and be like, okay, how can I bless them? Even if it's just, okay, I got to go down to the cafe and make them a coffee. Or I have to go and drive someone to somewhere. Discipleship doesn't mean duplication. I don't want someone to be exactly like me, but I want them to inherently do what I am called to do in their context, in their capacity. People over problems. Okay, how many times have we experienced an issue on a Sunday morning and you're actually getting to sit in the service and you're worshiping, and then the side screen or the screen up there turns off, and it's like, okay, our vocalists don't have lyrics, so they're just up there winging it, and you have to go back and you have to figure out what is going on. Sometimes that could be a volunteer bumping something, that could be a volunteer messing with something that they shouldn't be messing with, but ultimately, are we dealing with the people and actually investing in them and empowering them to actually put the plans into place? Procedures, where I work, we have a procedure for how we do Sunday morning. This is what happens at 7:15 when the doors are unlocked, and this is what happens at 8:29 whenever the countdown hits double zeros. All of that is timed out, but if you're not taking the time to invest in the people, ask them how they're doing, talk to them, really invest in them, then ultimately what we're doing is probably going to be pretty useless in the long run. People over plans, kind of the same thing as procedure. People over processes. If you can really hone in on, okay, how can I actually invest in people and make them buy in to what we're trying to do, not just instruct them. Empower and not instruct. People always have to come first. And I want to actually talk about that by backing it up with some scripture, which I don't have pulled up. Shame on me. But if at any point you have prioritized the system over the servant, you've missed the mark. That's something that hit me really deeply when I get frustrated that tech goes out. or that someone hit a wrong note, because I'm OCD and I'll be like on stage and be like, they're not playing the right part, or someone's singing a part that they shouldn't be singing. Everyone notices a different piece, but if you prioritize what the system should look like over the servants, we're missing the mark. Genesis 11 is what I want to talk about. If you know the story, it's about the Tower of Babel. The whole world, they became one common speech. They said to each other, let's make bricks. They used the bricks instead of stone for mortar, and tar for mortar. They built the tower. And then verse 5, the Lord came down to the city and the tower and were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they've begun to do this, then nothing by them will be impossible for them. Come, let us confuse their language. So he did. The Lord scattered them from wherever. And that is because there the Lord confused the whole language of the world. From there the Lord scattered them over the earth. Does anyone want to take a stab at like why God saw that as an issue? Anything? Pastor? No?
I'm just getting coffee.
So the Lord scattered their language, but it's really, I believe, because the issue was that their creation prioritized their creator. They saw the tower and they saw that thing, the thing that they put all their hard work into, and they started feeling that pride, that puffed up. They had the perfect Sunday service at 8:30 a.m. They saw thousands of people sitting in their seats. Their worship team was killing it. Their band was killing it. And their hearts were empty. That's today's context. I've been a part of a church that has had worship leaders, and I hate to say this, and it's really convicting, who have shown up not just hungover, but actually intoxicated on a Sunday morning. It happens more than you think. And it's because they got so good at their creation that they forgot their creator. So if that is something that you take away, the only thing that you take away, may we never lose why we're doing this and actually prioritize what it is and how to efficiently turn our gaze from here to here. So we must be careful to never put our plan in priority of what God can do in us first, not thinking about the person in row 3, seat A, about what's in our hearts. How to bring the best out of your media ministry is by bringing the best out of your people. Are your people bought in? Are they actually bought in for the right reasons? Do they think, we have this, 65-foot LED screen and think, wow, we're really something? Or is it, I get to praise my creator through my creativity? Next, number 2, direction. Oh, I forgot that line. Good leaders lead. Great leaders teach others how to lead. The best leaders will inspire other leaders to lead like them. We can even look at that like through the Bible, but I wanted to kind of think about who are worship leader idols. Not, I don't like using the word idols, but like the people we look to as like, how can we mimic, imitate their sound, their style, whatever they have, how can we make it like them? That might be the definition of what the best leaders will, because we're thinking of how they can efficiently and effectively communicate creativity. So if you can do anything to inspire people to lead the way you want to be led, is probably the most important thing that I would take away from learning how to be a leader. And at the end, I'm going to resource you with some leaders that I personally look up to. Next is direction, even with no decisions, is vital as a leader. How I break this down is you have, I almost drew it out, now I'm wishing I did, but you have a horse and buggy, and you're in the driver's seat. The buggy is the message you're trying to convey. It's the thing, it's the gospel. It really is what it is. And then you have the road of where you're headed, and then you have people as your horse A, and processes as your horse B. The thing that intertwines them should be the message, which is what we're communicating and where we're going. So direction is what we really need as leaders, and lead pastors, I know we have some in the room, how we can really capture and hang on to the lead pastor's vision, their bullseye, their target, is where we should be headed first, knowing that the man of God who is listening to the Holy Spirit has our best interest as a unit at heart, and we're headed in that direction. Sometimes, I'll be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll show up on a Sunday morning and I know what I'm supposed to do, but I may be like, okay, like there's this issue, how am I going to solve it? There's this person, how am I going to talk to them about this? How am I going to deal with this? I don't know all the answers, but I have the direction because I have a bullseye, which is the lead pastor's vision, along with the Holy Spirit guiding the direction, even if I don't know how I'm going to make a decision to get there. Again, let's go to Proverbs 29:18. I have this memorized, but where there is no vision, the people perish. Let's get real literal with the translation. Other translations, it will they're confused. They're broken up. They're separated. But whoever keeps the law is blessed. So biblically, we need to have a vision in where we're going. As a ministry, with our creativity, how are we going to get to that point? We at least need the direction to head there. Again, I'm only 24, and I wish I had a book and I could just have it in front of you and be like, read this and all your problems are solved. It's not the answer. Fortunately for us, it's not the answer. But I'm gonna go back a little bit and actually backtrack and talk about where my direction was whenever I first started media. I had a 8-year-old DSLR camera, a shotgun mic, and one of these from Steve Jobs. And that was my creative suite. I would film basketball games, football games, and I would dump the footage onto a cloud, edit on my phone, publish. And that's how it worked. I thought it was great. Until I realized it wasn't long-term a great investment. But I found a direction where I wanted to head. I didn't have the budget for it yet. I didn't have the best ideas. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't have the knowledge, but I had a direction. I was like, this is what I'm gonna chase. This is where I'm headed. With that, I invested in more equipment, and I got 3 things that were the best tools that I've ever learned as someone who is a self-made media professional. Is number 1, Google. Number 2, email. Number 3, social media. What I want you to understand is not everybody has the answers to their media ministry. I don't have all the answers, but everyone does. Nobody has all the answers, but everyone has all the answers. And what I want you to think about is Ecclesiastes, I believe it's chapter 1, verse 30 something. Nothing is new under the sun. We have all the tools we need. Are you resourcing yourself to go in the direction to make the decisions along the way? So again, not to use the Bible out of context, but the Bible is a strong advocate for networking and for also finding wisdom in how to get to the direction making the decisions along the way. Make sure all your decisions are direction oriented and that you're actually aimed towards the bullseye, not just target oriented. Sometimes we'll be like, oh, that's good enough, and we're not actually headed towards the bullseye, we're just headed towards the general target. Keep our eyes focused on the bullseye, focus on what the lead pastor and the Holy Spirit are telling us, and we will eventually get to that point. Unfortunately, I think sometimes, myself included, I think too little of my ideas. The Bible says, don't think highly of yourselves as you ought to think. Sometimes I think we can have this false sense of humility. Be like, oh, we call that nowadays imposter syndrome, though I'm not good enough. I don't know how all the answers. And frankly, there is so much peace in accepting that, knowing I don't have to have all the answers, but I can get there with community. Like Mark, you said this morning, like our spiritual experience is based in community as much as it is individualism. If you aren't surrounding yourselves with people who are smarter and more talented than you, you will limit your leadership. And I have this list, and if you want to take a picture, if you want me to send it to you, these are leaders that I look up to. These are social media pages that I follow, people that I even have phone numbers. If you have a number of someone who has something that you admire and you're like, okay, that is anchored in the same direction that I'm following, don't try and reinvent the wheel. So many times we think little of our ideas, or we want to actually try to be the best, make up the best ideas when someone else may have already efficiently done what you're trying to do. So Jake Gosling, Church Front, if you know anything about broadcasts, that is the guy. He's been to our church a couple times, done some tech tours, helped us with our LED wall. If I was talking to Trey about this, if you guys have heard of Sunday Keys, the founder actually is from my church. Myself and then one of our other lead guitarists are sound designers for that company. So Jay Gosling, David Falsgraf, great all things broadcast, all things tech. YouTube is a great way. They also have a free class. They have a paid class. They have all the resources you need for anything media, broadcast, and tech. Rylan Russell, he's an amazing guy down in Oklahoma. All things tech, super down to earth, just worship leader. Brady Shearer, amazing, talented social media manager and trend. I'm not going to say trendsetter, but he knows what is happening, when it's happening, and how quickly to latch onto things. One of my favorite series he just did on social media is like what he's not pursuing in 2024, which is really helpful because sometimes we can be like in this mindset of, oh, all these things are getting likes, views, or working on a Sunday morning, and then, oh, we immediately have to do that. Not always the case. Some of that makes sense for you, some of that makes sense for this church, some of that doesn't make sense at all. Clayton Gregory, sound engineer, he's a good friend of mine down in Atlanta, Georgia. He runs a business called, I believe it's worship mixing. If you have any qualms with your broadcast sound, or if you guys are trying to get to a level where you're producing a high-level live stream, you need high-level sound, he's the guy. Has pretty much taught me everything that I know about my broadcast setup, and then I've just kind of taken it from there. In the church world in the last 3 years, you know the name. His leadership podcast is phenomenal, great resource. I would highly recommend. I listen to it weekly. Gary Vaynerchuk, caveat, secular, very secular, but also phenomenal leader. Phenomenal leader, also very savvy with what is trending, what to latch onto, what not. Again, big caveat, very secular. But I had to throw that in there because I'm always consuming his content in, okay, how does this make sense from a Christian worldview? How can I take this and bridge the gap with the tools that he has? James Adams, Pro Presenter, if you are displaying lyrics on Sunday morning, I'm assuming everyone in here used Pro Presenter because it is the best. I've used a lot of other ones and it's hard to argue with it. I mean, whether using Worshiply or anything like that. Same with Paul Allen Clifford, Pro Presenter. There are Facebook groups dedicated to learning Pro Presenter better. If you want to be like, okay, we want to display our lyrics better, resource yourself by actually getting in those Facebook groups. Ask questions. use the search tab, find the answers you're looking for. And then Theos University, a theology course. They have a subscription course theology. I'm not really sure how to best describe it, but how Nathan Finocchio talks about it, it is Netflix for church nerds. If you really want to learn about a specific topic on demand, Theos University, great. I think they charge like $20 a month or something like that. I've taken so many of their courses. Nathan is a phenomenal leader. Amazing meme person as well, if you like memes. Next is, I want you guys to connect with me. If you want to follow me, great. If not, put my phone number in your phone if you ever have questions. Scan the QR code, that's my personal website. You can connect with me anytime. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I do like to connect, network, connect with others outside of my sphere of influence, because I think that is probably the most important way to learn, is by teaching as well. I've learned so much as a musician teaching piano, guitar, drums, and I've learned more about myself and how to play better, how to instruct better from teaching. So I'd love to connect with you. Last, and this is the main portion of like why we're talking about media, is maximizing the tools you have. Are you investing in your long-term consistency or short-term achievements? That's something that I struggled with hugely at my last church. I was creative director, so that means I oversaw everything digital and physical as well, from printing signs to our flyers. We had a billboard go up at one point and I had to design it. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how. Google was a great resource. Maximize the tools you have by investing in your long-term consistency with what you already have before making a jump to what you think will project you further down the road. Again, if you have all the tools but not the knowledge to use them, you're gonna spin your wheels, you're gonna get frustrated, you're gonna eventually burn yourself out by thinking, oh, this is the answer, gear is the answer, software is the answer. I was really inexperienced whenever I first bought my first laptop. I was like 18, and I was just like, oh, MacBooks are the best. Still think they are the best. But I bought the base model MacBook, I think i7 Air. And I downloaded Photoshop, Lightroom, DaVinci Resolve, downloaded all of them, and it fried that thing. Why am I saying that? Is because I thought the answer was the thing and not the knowledge behind it. Again, I got really good at editing on my phone, which is hilarious to say, but hey, that's what got me to where I am today. Do you have gear that is beyond your experience? Sometimes we buy things and we're investing in the things because so-and-so said this is what we need, and they're probably right. Before you do any of that, do your research. Really invest in yourself long-term rather than the gear long-term. Eventually this TV is going to break. Eventually I'm going to upgrade the MacBook. Eventually I'm going to get rid of all of my devices and have new. Doesn't do me any good if I have never used them before and don't know how to use them moving forward. Do you have a system in place that can make your gear work and make your job replaceable? Ooh. That is really touchy subject because job security, everyone wants to make sure that they have their job moving forward. But ultimately, kind of like what I said earlier about good leaders leading, great leaders teach others how to lead. Great. Best leaders will inspire other leaders to lead like them. Maybe not the same way, but lead like them. Make your job replaceable. Make yourself replaceable. If you are struggling to get away on a vacation and you're burning yourself out, the harsh truth is that is not on your volunteer team. That is on you as a leader for not training them up to take your place. Hard lesson I had to learn. I am who here does their Enneagram? Yeah, okay. It is a good tool. Please do not put all of your chips in one basket, but it is a great tool. I have a note on my phone of why I am the way I am. And then I cross-reference that with what does God tell me about who I am as a believer, as a child of God, as a son. My Enneagram 3-wing 2, I'm the achiever and I'm the helper. Very dangerous in the church world because I don't want to help people who don't want to be helped. And I also don't want to help people who are not going to do the work to help themselves. So that means I do all the work myself. Easy, right? No, it burns you out. It has burnt me out. And if you are looking to make the most out of your ministry, not only is it the people, but it's the process, making it repeatable, making the experience seamless, making it so that way everyone can take a part, even if you're delegating small pieces. Hey, I need you to make the coffee. Well, I don't know how. Cool, let me teach you. And that's 10 minutes of me not having to make the green room coffee. Oh, hey, I need to schedule my volunteers. Hey, I'm actually in this process of learning this, of actually delegating volunteers to schedule volunteers. The reason that is such a hard time for me is because we have a lot of volunteers, yes, but the process of how I schedule them is very unique. It's not like everyone else. Our production director for our in-room experience is amazing. She'll just be like, plug people in, 10 minutes, boom, done. I'm like taking 2 days to schedule volunteers because my brain can't wrap around like all the things that I'm thinking about. Okay, what if I have this person along with this person? All the things. Make your job repeatable. And if that means sacrificing your own preferences even, that might be the best answer to that situation. 3 tips to make your job repeatable. 1, make it easy. A friend of mine from River Valley Church, he taught a breakout session at their conference last year. Plug for their conference if you want a great leadership conference to go to. I think it's July 6th through the 9th this year. It's like $100. Go if you can. It's amazing. I'll be there. Love to connect with you guys again. But he said, okay, can you make the position of volunteers going to learn? Can your kids do it? Within reason. Within reason, please. Can your 6-year-old son learn it? Kids are so smart because a 5-year-old can't tie their shoes, but they can play for hours on one of these. Let's be real. Times have changed. Can your kids do the job that a volunteer can? Maybe not entrusting them with the responsibility and the expectations, but is it easy enough? Make it simple. I was a part of a mobile church set up, tore down for 8 years. I was only a part of that church for 4. They still do not have a physical building that they own. We labeled the crap out of everything. Can Sharon, who has never set foot in church in her life, come for her son and be like, I want to get involved? Cool, you can be on the setup team. Can she know what an Ethernet cable is, plug it into the port it's supposed to go in, and the rack work the way it's supposed to? Label everything. Make sure everything is clear, concise. We have checklists, sheets of how to make sure everything ran. We even do that in my current church. We're not set up teardown. We still label everything. We have a checklist of, does anyone in here know what Dante is? Dante? Okay, so Dante is a virtual sound grid that sends your audio to different places through software instead of through physical cables. We have everything checklisted of how we want Dante to route. I was talking with Trey about this last night. Whenever I play keys on Sundays, I use 8 outputs. That is a lot. That's probably more than anybody else except for maybe our drummer uses on a Sunday. And then our other keys players use 2 outputs. What does that mean? Every Sunday that I play keys, we have to reroute everything. That would take hours if we don't know where to find everything. Quickly, efficiently, plug it in, we're good to go. Last year, make it clear. Is your vision communicated? And that stems from leadership, from your lead pastors all the way to the people who are coming for the first time. branding is super important, but it's not everything. I think at times churches want to over-brand. They want all their fonts to be the same. They want their colors to be the same. Are you experiencing, or are you communicating the experience how a new time person should be receiving it? And if that isn't communicated, then you've lost the clarity in what you're trying to communicate with your vision. Again, if you can start with your lead pastor really latching onto their vision, something that I should have written this down, but unity does not equal uniformity. The reason we're all connected is because we're all different, and that's what makes us powerful whenever we connect everything. I mean, look at these lights, you know, they lit up a whole room, but they're all connected to one source. First of all, source, Holy Spirit and God. Second source is the person who we can actually understand their vision, capture it, and communicate it. So, our vision should be communicated. And then lastly, I wanted to open it up for any questions. These are my areas of expertise. I have ran a broadcast team for about 5 years now of 2 different churches. I've been in the filmmaking industry for 8 years. I've been producing my own films and music for also about the last 8 years. Been a photographer for going on a decade. Really the last 2 years I've been honing in on audio engineering, how to actually take a song that I've either written or someone else has written, mix and master it. Sound design, from making a Sunday morning experience or a track or a live stream or even a film. The thing that makes a film great is whenever you can close your eyes and still see what's happening. Gear, I'm a big gear head. I'm always keeping up with what is the latest and greatest stuff. Not to say I own the latest and greatest stuff. This MacBook is 4 years old. This iPad is 8 years old. I do have the newest iPhone because I do have to upgrade every year. I'm that guy. And then networking. I communicate with so many people on a daily basis. I had the privilege of working with some artists in Nashville in October of this year. Last week I was just in Arizona working with a church in their Phoenix, or in the Phoenix Metro, on their broadcast and their creative team. Later this month, February, I will be in Minneapolis helping another church with their broadcast as well. Networking, I can't stress it enough. Not anyone knows all the answers. Everyone knows all the answers. There's so much power in community, knowing things from people who know more than you. So, all that to say, thank you for listening to me ramble for the last 30 minutes, and I want to open it up for some questions. If you have any questions on these things or anything that I said during my talk that you want clarity on, I just wanted to open that up before we dismiss. Otherwise, we can talk amongst ourselves.
Yes. So most of us come from smaller churches, and in a small church, I think most of us probably have the experience where there's one, maybe if you're lucky, 2 people that are experienced with media, and most of them tend to only have a limited amount of time, and if they do move on, then kind of up the creek without the paddle, right? And so I love the idea that you had of bringing the best out of your people. So what would you recommend as far as with those people that are less experienced? Like, what does it look like for you guys in your setting when you are bringing an inexperienced person in to bring the best out of those people, and how could that translate into churches?
Absolutely. To go back to this for a minute, making your process as easy, as simplified as it can, that does not always mean dumbing it down in quality. We still stream our broadcast in 1080. We have 4-man cameras. All those cameras are set to the settings that I have deemed essential and necessary for what we're doing. And then we're also using ProPresenter to display all of our lyrics and everything like that. So making it easy might be the biggest, the hurdle is making it easy without sacrificing quality. With that, I didn't really talk about it too much, but give as much grace for mistakes to be made as possible. We are all human. That being said, give grace and make no exceptions. We kind of talk about that a little bit at our churches. We give grace for everybody because everyone likes the idea of grace whenever it's received, but it's so hard to give. We do that without making exceptions. Your grace is not the same as this person's, but also the expectations are still set the same. In training, I would delegate as many of the easy processes as possible. We have a lot of kids serve in our ministry. Our minimum age is 11, but we still make it easy enough for kids to learn it. If that's okay, not everyone can learn to play keys. Great, we might have to revert to using tracks for a weekend or using a keys player who is less experienced. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but making it as easy, simple, and clear while also investing in them personally will really make them latch onto the vision. There are people that think they know a lot until it comes down to it, and then they just were really, blowing smoke or talking, and then it comes down to, fourth quarter, and it's like, okay, I can't really trust them to actually. So give reasonable expectations and responsibilities that really balance out that meter. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Do you guys have ongoing training, like as far as specifically with your media team? Do you have like on the schedule a quarterly media meeting with like where you're investing? Like, is there anything consistent, or is it just as people come on?
So what we've deemed probably most efficient is to train individually. I've done talks like this before, where it's like, okay, this is how you run ProPresenter. This is how you run a camera. All of that. The thing that we found out is that everybody is different and everybody learns differently. Our media ministry has grown probably 3x in the last year due to one thing, and I will buy anyone coffee if you get this right. It's by one thing. It's actually a very humorous response. Anyone have a guess?
Jesus.
No.
Socials?
No. It's a very humorous response. Snacks. People want to feel like they're seen. Oh, do you have a favorite snack? We'll keep snacks, we'll keep drinks, and we'll make sure people feel seen and while they train, and also make them feel seen enough to come back. Training is so hard because it requires your time and their time. So if you can, this doesn't always happen, if you can, have someone else train them for you. Kind of going back to like this leadership like scale of like, okay, I can lead people in doing mundane tasks. Okay, I can teach someone else to teach someone how to do a mundane task. Other people will take that upon themselves to teach others and also to grow it without you actually having to be involved. Does that answer your question? Cool. Yes.
Have you found a way of recruiting new volunteers that's more effective than others? I know oftentimes people do a blanket announcement, but a lot of times it's a personal invite. So what have you found that's been successful, whether experienced or inexperienced volunteers?
Sure.
A scale we have for our church is the 80-20 scale. What that means is the information that we're going to broadcast to the church has to be relevant to 80% of the congregation. Now you could make the argument, 80% of the congregation could serve in media, but that's really not the case. Realistically, it's probably like under 50% of the people who would have the time, capacity to. We have gone away from broadcasting announcements of needing help. We will sometimes do volunteer calls of like, hey, we have a specific event we need your help with. Try to leave it as generic as possible because it won't apply to everyone the same. What we do twice a year is our volunteer name is crew. So we have our crews. We have production crew, gotcha crew, our host crew. So instead of calling them volunteers or instead of calling them whatever, we call them crews. It's just kind of, we think it just works for us. There's really not any complicated rhyme or reason. We do it twice a year. We have a crew night, and that is just we love you, come have a good time. We'll do worship, and then we'll have a message, we'll have food, and then during that time, we will have a volunteer call specific to different areas of ministry. So we'll have a booth that is the medium booth. We'll have we'll decorate it, but we'll have okay, this is essentially what you would see on a Sunday morning. We have our gotcha crew, which is basically our welcome crew. We call them gotcha because, do you need something? I got you. It's worked for us. So we have all these booths to recruit people specific to them. Most of the time, people will latch onto something that they feel valued in, and that they actually see the value from it. The hardest part about recruiting for a broadcast team is, yes, they could watch the live stream and they'll see maybe a couple hundred views a weekend. What they don't see is 3 campuses and the salvations that come from people actually sitting in those seats, watching our lead pastor on a screen every Sunday morning, coming to Christ. Communicating your vision will, if it's clear and, I don't want to use the word appealing enough, but make it so that way they feel valued and that they see the value from it. How we recruit most of the people is word of mouth. So that I'll say that is the most of it. This week I sent out 5 texts to people. I was like, all right, I just need to go through and set some goals. I need to onboard some new volunteers. I've seen this person at church. I've talked to this person at church. Sent out 5 emails. 3 of them said yes. 2 of them said, let's chat over coffee. So word of mouth, the people who serve in those ministries will probably be your biggest asset because they will recruit for you. We had a recruiting challenge for a month. Whoever recruited the most volunteers got a $50 Cheesecake Factory gift card. One person recruited one person. That was it. So they won. Nice. We did not expect that. We expected a little bit more ROI, I guess, and we didn't get it. Again, it's kind of humorous, but the biggest recruiting piece that we've used is snacks. People love to feel loved. And if they love that their favorite candy is waiting for them, or that, I can at least come and feel valued, feel welcomed, that's how we've gotten people to retain on the team. Any other questions?
I have one if no one else does. I want to give you guys a chance. And just out of curiosity, I heard a statistic that your total average attendance tends to be 3 times your regular volunteers. And we've measured that here, and it's almost spot on. And so I'm just kind of curious if you know about how many volunteers total you guys have in relation to your attendance, if that's consistent for you guys.
I could look. So we have a volunteer coordinator, our volunteer care pastor, and she is like the connect person for all of those types of things, but I might be able to find out quick for you.
It's not that big of a deal, I was just kind of curious.
Does anyone have any other questions while I do a quick look on that side of things? For our Clive campus, we have about 700 volunteers, and we average about 1,600 people a week. It's higher, lower. We're in the process of purchasing a new building. We just shuffled our service times to allow for people to actually come and attend and not be, you know, packing out the room so that way the fire department doesn't get on us. Our 10:30 service was just so packed that we were like, we can't cut you guys off, but if you guys want to sit out in the lobby and watch the screen, great. Otherwise, can you guys come to the 8:30? So I would say about 40% of that is volunteers. Yep. Specifically media. I think the hardest thing is the hardest thing to recruit for a media ministry is you are there 10 minutes before service. Well, you're arriving 30 minutes before, you're serving 10 minutes before service time, and you're not done serving until 10 minutes after service time. That whole time, you're either sitting or standing and actually engaged with serving. Our gotcha crew, they show up, you know, an hour before service and they serve until the service starts. The worship team, they'll obviously rehearse during the week, rehearse before service, but then once they're done, you can attend one service and then you can chill in the green room, you can leave and come back, type thing. So I think how we have found people to really actually engage with the media specifically is by making the environment as friendly and not boring as possible, and snacks are definitely a part of that.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So the snacks aren't like a recruitment, like, hey, if you come, we'll hook you up with this. Or is it that?
Partly, we're like, we are shameless about, hey, serving production, we have snacks.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the green room is stocked. You know, we do have a fridge and stuff in the green room for like people because they'll show up 2 hours before service time, and then, you know, that I mean missing breakfast or not getting a coffee at the cafe type thing. So that's less broadcasted, I think, mostly because the why for serving on stage is a little bit more higher capacity, expectation wise. Any other questions? Let me see what time this actually ends, but otherwise I would love to hear maybe testimonies of what you have been experiencing and seeing God actually do in your ministry. So 2 people, if you guys just want to talk about what you've seen in your ministry, just a win if you can. Any wins? I'll go first. We had a person who has been attending for 7 years, strictly attending, give their life to Christ, get baptized last go around, and start serving in the last year. And so 6 to 7 years of consuming without contributing, I think really caused them to get a stir to actually get involved. So that was a big win for us. Anyone else have a win?
I've had a handful of people in the last couple of months come together and provide solutions to kind of the problems that we all know are there, you know what I mean? Where most people are like, here's a problem, you fix it. They have been like, here's some problems, we want to fix it, and super proactive about actually fixing it. So that's been certainly an encouragement.
Amazing.
Our live stream is not the best, right? Small church. One of our musicians stayed home sick and watched it, and they came back and said, you know what, it wasn't very full, the music wasn't very full. And so they said, we need more singers. So I said, okay, can you fix that? And the next week they recruited 5 more people to go on rotation to sing in the background to kind of help that aspect of it. So they saw that need and filled it, and I didn't have to do a thing, which was good.
That's amazing. That's part of like empowering and communicating your vision that they are now taking as their own. So that's,
I mean, I wanted it all along, but it's like, I couldn't push that training, so it finally just had to happen, yeah.
love it. Well, let's pray and end this session, and then we'll get out of here. I think Mark's in here next. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing across this country. God, we have people who have come a few miles, and then a couple of people who have come a few hours. And Jesus, I just thank you that you are the one who unites us together to serve you, to honor you, to give you praise, but also, God, to learn and to know how to serve you in an excellent way. Jesus, thank you for these leaders taking of their weekend to invest. Thank you that they were willing to give up their time, their precious, precious free time. And God, I'm just grateful to see the fruit that comes from people really investing in their teams and in their church. God, we just love you. Thank you for all that you're doing. In Jesus' name, amen.